The point is, I try and turn it to, do they know what they're looking for? Because if the person doesn't know what the hell they're looking for, that isn't very useful. Hi, this is Ethan Evans. Just a quick reminder, when I speak on this channel, I'm speaking for myself. The views I express here don't represent my employer, Amazon, or anyone else. They're just me. Thank you. Well, first, I'm Ethan Evans, and welcome into hard, awkward, tough, nasty, unsettling, difficult interview questions, part 2. Not all of that would fit in the on-screen title, but that's what we're going to talk about. And I was getting all stressed out about this show, and I decided I'm going to have fun with it. So for anybody who wasn't here, we did a part 1 last week. We had tons of questions. I do want to give the advice I gave. I'm not going to repeat questions. So if you guys vote up questions I did last week, I'm going to refer you to the VOD because we have a lot of new ones I haven't gotten to. But here's the basic advice. If you get hit with a tough or unexpected question, first, you should have done your thinking before the interview. Hey, what are the weaknesses and holes in my background? What could people ask? For example, if I were interviewing for a new job, I'm 50, I have white hair. Someone could basically ask a borderline illegal question, but they could say, so for someone of your vast experience, are you still dedicated to working hard? Do you still have the energy to come in every day? And are you going to be committed? It's a shit question, right? But if you get asked something like that, I can know I may face questions about my energy level, dedication, technical relevance, or any number of other insulting ageist questions, right? It's the okay boomer, right? Here it comes. So if I'm going to get that, I should have an answer. I should have an answer to be able, yeah, and the best answer is hell no. I'm just working as a hobby. Like, I need some medical care, and you guys seem like a soft place to rest and vest. That would be a fun answer. But if I had to answer this or any question, the trick is I shouldn't be surprised by this. I should have thought through, okay, I'm 50. Maybe someone will ask me if I'm still up for really being dedicated and 100%. How do I want to be ready? So the key for you is think through these questions in advance so that you're caught off guard less often. Second, if you do get surprised, there are some questions it's okay to take a minute and think about. Like, hey, what would your boss say about you? If we were able to call him up and ask for a reference, what would he say for feedback about you? And he said, well, let me think about that. But there are other questions, like the big one from last week of, why didn't you finish college? You can't be like, well, why didn't I finish college? Let me think about that. You kind of just have to know and go. Otherwise, it sounds like, well, let me think up a plausible lie. You can't do that. So, the third piece of advice I gave last week, just to give you the framing, be honest, but you don't have to go on at great length. So honest and completely detailed are different. So I can be honest about why I'm going to have a lot of energy at work. And I could say, well, actually, I'm professionally driven. My whole career has been about accomplishment. And actually, as I get more experience and have more impact, I find I'm having more fun at work than less. That's an honest answer. I could say I'm an obsessed workaholic, blah, 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 and that would make the answer negative. By the way, I'm not, but if that were true, that would make the answer negative. The last thing as advice is, if you get asked one of these questions, your job is to answer it and get out. So acknowledge the question, answer it somehow, turn it into a positive, move on. These are not questions where you can win a job. You can only basically lose a job, mostly. So just try and get out of Dodge. All right. So I will be energized at work because I'm on ADHD medication. Exactly. Legal speed. I work at double speed thanks to modern pharmaceuticals. All right. So I think that's enough preamble. We will eventually, by the way, last time, because there were so many questions, I skipped our tradition of the question of the week. But this time, we'll just hold it for later. What we're going to do right now is start tackling questions out of the extension. So, awesome moderating squad, can you pop up and pin our first question, which is, as a software engineering student applying for internships, if you're asked, how do you justify the lack of experience or personal projects? So this basically doesn't have anything to do with a software engineer. It can be any person who doesn't have a ton of experience, who's just coming out of college. And, there are a lot of bad answers to this that would be fun. So let's see. Wow. I only saw Ramblin's response and I was trying to make sense of it. And I had to go find what Pink Dragons had said for that to make any sense at all. I'm like, what the hell's going on in chat? So look, bad answers for this would be like, well, I'm struggling to get through college and I just don't have time for anything that's not coursework. Or, well, I joined a sorority or fraternity, and honestly, after all the social functions and heavy drinking, there just isn't time for anything else. Those would not be good answers. And you'll generally find that vein of things, those are not good answers. So we can learn by what are good answers. Other people in chat, we had great participation. Feel free to give your answers to this. The first thing is, sane interviewers should not expect a lot of experience from people coming out of college. The second thing is, the most normal thing you do here is you refer to course projects. Ligerbox, no, there is no point in trying to get your interviewer off guard, at least not in the sense of like trying to unsettle or disturb them. There is a good point in trying to get your interviewer to relax. And if you're comfortable and confident, a well-planned joke can work. So yeah, feel free to make a joke if you feel like that can work out for you. And I see a bunch of people just joined in. I'm Ethan Evans. We're answering questions, hard interview questions. And right now we're talking about the question, what should students looking for internships do to justify their lack of experience? Lack of experience is expected in college students. You want to make the most of what you have. And yeah, Duke of Thought, you're right. Like, innocuous jokes are best. I wouldn't tell anything remotely off color. But if you can make something funny or lighthearted or bond with the interviewer, I say this all the time, interviews are a tribal experience. Your interviewer should be trying to figure out if you're skilled, but what they're actually trying to do is figure out if they like you and can work with you, and if you have enough skills that it can work out. But there's so much subconscious going on of, is this someone I want to sit next to and talk to all day? So you get way more credit for that. Baroque Painter asked, do you care about GPA? And since we're talking about internships, I'll mention that. General answer, sort of. You want people who have a decent GPA. We can argue what that is, 2.5, 3 on the American 4-point scale. But we don't care between 4.0 and 3.8 and 3.6 and 3.3. We basically are trying to figure out, did you get through college by the skin of your teeth, which might indicate that you're kind of screwed up in the mind of the judgmental person, might indicate, wow, there's problems with Baroque Painter, because Baroque Painter has a 2.03 and obviously just barely survived. That kind of GPA, sure. Anything in the middle of the run, we're moving on, because academic smarts are not the only thing we care about. So all the valedictorian honors and stuff, I'm sure there are companies that care about that. Oh, you were valedictorian. You were this. You were that. And I guess I've heard the big 5 consultancies, like a PricewaterhouseCoopers type or a KPMG, really cares about that. Most don't. Yeah, the answer, working 30 to 35 hours most of college, you can totally say that. I would represent that as putting that work experience on your resume and say, put myself through college by working 30 hours a week cleaning toilets. Learned how to be responsible and to balance multiple commitments. That's a powerful story. And yeah, Deloitte, McKinsey, etc. Yeah. Duke of Thought, I'm surprised, but I can't say. I was answering, do I care about GPA? I know some places do. And look, have the best GPA you can, right? But I got where I got with like a 3.2. So now I went to a good school, so the school name carried a lot of weight, but I was not a 4.0. Basically, I had to struggle through college. So, all right. So the way to justify it, though, is explain what else you were doing and use the projects you have accomplished. And so if that is, just like I was saying earlier, if you're a student and you're expecting to be asked about the lack of your experience or personal projects, plan on answering that in advance. Yeah, Ligerbox was just joking, Baroque, because you had a low GPA in my example. So he's a long-term veteran here. If there's anybody feeling like gifting a sub, Ligerbox would be an excellent recipient because he brings a lot of fun to the channel and is a huge part of our Discord. So there you go. Yes, hint, hint. That's true. But no, nobody needs to gift a sub. It's just he's a channel hero. So all right, and there's a few of those. So I think I've kind of answered this one to death, but anticipate this question and be prepared to explain what experience you have and to point to your class projects and what you learned from them. So we'll move on. All right. If you're asked the next question, and I'm sure there are plenty of Amazonians in chat, they may not all choose to come out of hiding, and particularly if we include Twitch staff. The next question is, what other companies are you interviewing with? And so let me tackle that one. If you are asked this, you don't have to answer, but you better have an answer prepared. I would have something more generic that said, well, I am considering several options, but I'm not comfortable sharing that. Or I'd rather focus on talking about your company. You turn it back to them, but it's totally fine to say that you're looking at someplace else. And if people don't like it, why does a company ask that? They want to know if they have competition for the offer. Why do you want to answer it? You want them to know you have options. So this is a little bit of a dance. Okay. I said I was going to give bad answers. As an example, what other companies are you interviewing with? Anyone I can. Everyone I can. Those are poor answers. Well, I'm interviewing really broadly. Or I'm interviewing with the people I think will pay me the most. You don't want to give super shallow answers or answers that sound like you're desperate. Desperation doesn't go over well in an interview, which is a topic we may get to later, anger and desperation in the job search. So what would I actually say to this? I would not name other companies, but say in my example, I would say, well, I'm looking carefully at one or two other leading tech employers. That's the type of answer I'd give because it makes me sound, I think, you can judge for yourself, thoughtful and like you have options. So that's how I'd answer this. Next question. How are you going to overcome the technical skill we need that is not listed in your resume? Great question. Bad answers. Oh, I don't know. Oh, don't you have training programs? Or, well, I'd be expecting you to send me to a conference. Or, I don't know. I don't really work in that technology and I'm not very interested in it. Those are terrible answers. Don't answer anything like that. Yeah. So, Noto, I'm very eager to learn. Not a bad answer, a good start. But better is answering with what you already have learned. Like an example of, well, in the last case, so this is the STAR method. We talk about STAR all the time: situation, task, action, result. Yeah, so Sean123, I see your question. Pink Dragon said I should answer with actual bad answers I've heard. Maybe I'll do that from here on. I have not asked this question, so I have not heard bad answers to it. So I'll have to think about that. But how are you going to overcome the technical skill? You want to use STAR, which is situation, task, action, result, and explain a story of how you learned another skill you needed in a similar situation. So, well, when I joined Acme Inc., I didn't know how to sharpen pencils, but we needed to sharpen pencils. And so I went about learning how to sharpen pencils by reading a book, figuring out buying pencils myself and working on it at night, using Google. Whatever your answer is, you need a way. You need a way to show that you've learned skills you don't have before. And if you have to go back to college, again, you can say, well, in college, I'm a new graduate. So the place I faced that is we had a mandatory class in compiler design. And when I went into compiler design, I didn't know anything about compilers and I had to learn blah, blah, blah. And you tell how you did it. Ligerbox, we kind of talked about personal questions last time. If people ask you personal questions that you don't want to answer, you turn it back to the job. Basically, if you get a personal question that you don't want to answer, you say, well, I'm not sure that's relevant to the job here. Or can you rephrase that? Because I'm not understanding how that's relevant to the job we're talking about. There's probably nicer ways that you could like practice the phrasing, particularly if people often ask you something personal. But that's how I would do it. Is I would I'd lean towards asking it in that kind of way that led people to new questions, that led people back to the job. You're always trying to get focus back on the job and your qualifications and ability to perform in the job. That's for negative questions. For positive questions, if people want to chat about how you love dogs and they love dogs and you love sports ball team X and they love sports ball team X, totally talk and bond with the person because, again, that's going to, whether it should or not, we can argue it shouldn't, it's going to influence how much they're likely to give you a job a lot more than it should. And so if you have a chance to share relevant, happy anecdotes with someone who wants to chit chat, the more you're chit chatting, the less chance you're going to get tripped up on something you don't know. So let's see. Yeah. So learning, I think that's pretty straight up. We'll do one more question out of here because I've been waiting to get to this one. And then I'll flip to some of the ones that were submitted in Discord for a minute. So the next question here is, are you better than 50% of Amazon employees? And what this is, the reason I wanted to take this question, even though it's a weird question, for those of you who don't get it, is Amazon has this idea of what they call a high hiring bar. And what that says is for any given job, we try to only hire people that we think are better than half the people already in the job. And a lot of people then, a lot of mathematicians then get all hyper about this. And they're like, well, if you always did that, wouldn't you run out of people? Because you start with 2 people and then you hire 2 more that are better than all but one and blah, blah, blah. And the bar is always going up. Well, not really. Here's why. Number one, we're promoting people into the bottom of the level. And so there's a force hiring at the top that's moving the average up, and we're promoting people in, and that's moving the average down. And it's not because we're promoting lame people, but if some job level is 5 or 10 years of experience wide, or even 3 years, new people aren't typically going to be quite as skilled as people who've been in it several years. So there's a natural balancing force. That's thing one. Thing two, we make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes in hiring. So by aiming for the top half, sometimes we get people in the bottom half. But the idea is by aiming at the top half, when we get someone who's not quite as good as we thought, they're only in the bottom half and they have a chance, as opposed to they're below the bottom and we have to part ways. So that's thing number two. And then the rest of the idea is the jobs are always getting more difficult. So the challenges are getting bigger. And so we're always trying to find better and stronger people. But basically, I don't believe anyone would ever be asked this question for real. I just wanted to explain because obviously whoever asked it knows about Amazon. And I wanted to explain how we hire. So are you better than 50% of Amazon employees? Interesting question. When I first saw this sitting here, I wondered if it was directed at me, like if it was a trolley question of what do I think about it? And the answer is obviously somebody thought I was back when I was hired, but I answer honestly. And we'll move on from APUG where you say you think it's trolley. It might be, but I want to answer it honestly because I think you'll be interested in my answer. There are about 400 vice presidents in the giant organism that is Amazon. And among those 400, I'm somewhere in the middle. I'd like to think I'm in the top half, but there are some incredible people there that I would say without reservation are smarter, harder working, and more motivated than I am. All three. Out of the 400, I am not number one. Similarly, there are a few that I'm like, oh my God, I can't tell what you're contributing, and I wonder why you're still here. That's normal. In any group of 400, there's going to be some incredible people and some really not very good people. So answering honestly, I don't know. You'll have to go ask my boss. But I think I'm somewhere in the broad middle of the Amazon VP performance. So, yeah, the question app has a lot of questions in it, so it's performing slowly. So you may have to refresh it. If you're having trouble voting or seeing things, you have to hit refresh in the, if you're watching at least on the web, in the question widget. And that's because you guys have done such a great job. Ninja Muffin, no, I wish I was back on with Dr. K. I was talking to him earlier today offline. I was sharing with him, I'll flip this up again real quick. I was sharing with him, someone made an image from one of our talks, and this was it, a picture of something I said there. So he and I are in contact, and we may do more in the future, but I don't currently have anything scheduled with him again. So we're going to go to the next question. We'll try and clear some of these out and fly through them. Not in a bad way, but just because we have tons of interest and I might as well get to them. Animosis, thank you. I've heard, by the way, a ton of people who saw the Dr. K talk who've come back and said it was really helpful to them. And I'm glad. God knows it was helpful to me. I learned a bunch about myself. But I'm glad the transparency helps some people. And Evelyn Hunter, he's in touch with Twitch leadership. I won't say anything more than that. But they're looking at how to collaborate, is what I can say. So he has support in the Twitch leadership, and we'll see where it goes from there. So I'm hopeful he'll get a lot of support. And he has a lot of people in touch with him. I put Bobby Scar in touch with him to talk about community. So he's got tons of advocates and he's doing really well. Um, yeah. Okay. So back to this. Let's go on to the next question. A job. Well, I see the mods are ahead of me, so good job. A job requires expertise in a certain technology. Let's say it's AWS. You don't have experience in AWS. How do you respond to a recruiter if they ask, what AWS experience do you have? Number one, if you can say anything similar. So, well, I don't know AWS specifically, but I've used Azure, I've used Google App Engine, I've used the Google Cloud. That would be the number one thing you would say. Bad answers first. AWS, what does that stand for? Um, uh, you know, Anything like that. If a recruiter is asking about relevant experience, they're trying to tick the box. AWS is Amazon Web Services. They're trying to tick a box. And as soon as they tick that box, they'll move on. So you're trying to give them a plausible answer that doesn't get you eliminated. And in a case like this, adjacent experience counts. Yeah, I haven't used AWS yet. My company used Azure, but I'm aware of the similarities and differences, and the fundamental architecture is the same, or something like that. If you can't say that, then it goes back to the earlier answer about learning a new skill. Well, I've only worked on in house proprietary systems. However, one of the reasons I'm interested in this job is the chance to work on AWS. And in the past, I've learned blah, blah, blah. So I think I've answered this question. Mods, let's roll to the next one. This is a common one, short stays at a job. This is a good one. So basically, it says here you've only stayed a year at your past 3 jobs. How do we know you'll be dedicated to our company? Bad answer. And Sean123 asked if I had heard some of these before. Bad answers I've heard or heard of are, honestly, basically something griping about the boss, right? Something about, well, I didn't fit in there. I really had trouble with so-and-so, bad mouth, bad mouth, bad mouth. These are bad answers. Basically, I had trouble, Ligerbox. They found out I lied on my resume. That's about as low down as you could get. Um, yeah. So, the other bad answer is, well, each time I left for more pay. So are you going to pay well? Variations of being money motivated or coin operated. Wrong save state. Yes, it is acceptable to say that the corporate culture didn't seem sustainable, or my last job wasn't a complete fit for me. And be able to describe why. Be able to say, I was at a startup that had constant financial struggle. And after dealing with that for a while, I decided for my family, I need a place with more stability. Or conversely, if you're applying at a small company and you're leaving a large one, it's totally fine to say, well, I was at a large, stable company, but I found it was slow and bureaucratic, and I'm looking for a place where I can contribute and see things move at the speed we're capable of going, or whatever. You try and turn it to what you're looking for. So the right way to answer this is to turn it to what you're looking for. Now, what I ask people, so that you know what I actually ask when I see a lot of short stays, is I say, hey, look, I noticed that you've had several quick job moves. Can you tell me what you're looking for so that we can work out between us if Amazon is going to be a good fit for you? And the reason I phrase it that way is I'm not going to dig into their history of their other jobs, but I want to know if they can articulate. The point is, I try and turn it to, do they know what they're looking for? Because if the person doesn't know what the hell they're looking for, that isn't very useful. And I'm now afraid that they don't even know what they're looking for and they're just bouncing. But if someone can say, well, this is what I'm after. So, All right. We're going to do a little stream maintenance here for a second. All right. Lenny's gone. Don't worry about him. We just had to do a quick change. So sorry for that distraction. We'll come back. We don't get very many people, but as this channel grows, and as this channel grows, we're going to have a few more people drop in that we need to escort out. So the mice and men on Lenny. Ligerbox, that is a first-class reference. If yeah, banned for giving us V-Bucks. That's right. Lenny can move along. So all right. So I think I've answered this. The way, though, to be able to say what you're looking for and be able to answer what you're after and ask them and turn it back to asking about the company. So there you go. All right. Do you have any pointers? Next question is, do you have any pointers on general and group on video and group interviews? So those are two different things. Video interviews, you lose a lot of the body language, but not as much as in a phone call. So that is what it is, and it's okay. If that happens, you just have to deal with it. But be a little slower and more careful. Be a little slower and more careful about that. And so I would just say be more careful or more thoughtful in your articulation on video, because you don't have as easy of a way to check body language and get feedback. So I would ask, did I answer your question, or does that answer your question more often? And I would stop to check what they're looking for a bit more often. So that's how I would handle it. So we'll go to the next question. Do you have any general pointers on video? So I answered video. Group interviews should not be that common. Oh, and the mods were too quick on me. I said go to the next question too soon. So I will answer about group interviews, and then I'll get to this next question. Group interviews, and Herp Derp, I probably do about one interview a week at this point, but over my career, I've done about 2,500. So there was a time in my career where I was doing one a day. I have one tomorrow morning, for example. Group interviews aren't that common. I see Domkang saying they are, and we'll talk about them. They aren't commonly used now because they put the candidate very much on the defensive. They're all over you. And it feels like an inquisition, like a panel of judges firing questions at you, or like a PhD defense if you've been at one of those. And so that isn't comfortable. And so you're getting the stress response of the candidate. And so I said last show, the stress response of a candidate is only useful if they're in a normally high stress job. So if the person is a trial attorney, an ER doctor, maybe a policeman, that might be legit. But so how do you deal with group interviews wasn't something for a shitty question, but there's a lot of things you could do in a group interview that wouldn't be that great, like misremembering people's names. If I had to, as I was introduced, I'd write them down in a circle so that I haven't covered this, right? But it's the how to win friends and influence people. You got to use people's name. And so if it's a group interview, I would literally stop and say, so it was Sarah, right? It was, Vinesh or VJ, whatever you need to do to get everybody's name down, so that you can refer to them by name. And that's Carnegie and How to Win Friends and Influence People. But in a group interview, you've got to try to answer succinctly and look at the person who asked the question and they're not normally used in the US in most companies. Dome Kang, I don't know where you're from, but those questions you want to try to answer and move on. Honestly, group interviews are usually a survival tactic. And I will say there was a crazy company. There was a crazy company that put me through 12 interviews, I think, some of them group and some of them with lunch. So, and I've never seen groups of interviewees either. So that's not something I've commonly seen. So, all right. Next question, which is already up or will be up. Yeah, here we go. I learned with salary-related questions that it's best to give a 10K ballpark range. You agree with this approach? Yes, generally, I would not give a specific number. So I wouldn't say I'm looking for 42,000. I would say I'm looking for at least 40,000 or, but we talked about this in the last show. We talked about what to answer if you're asked what you expect to make. There's a few different answers. So you can go back to the VOD of that show. Very briefly, bad answers are things like as much as possible, or I don't know. You want to, and I've heard both of those. I don't normally ask these, by the way. These are questions the recruiter is usually the one asking. So, but I do agree I would give a range and say, well, I'm interviewing multiple places and I'm looking for at all, this is a great place to be slightly threatening by implication and say, well, at each place I've interviewed, I've shared that I'm looking for fair compensation for my abilities, which appears to be about 100, about 40,000 to 45,000. You give a range, but you make it competitive. And this week's rant, I think, is about anger and frustration and the negative effects those can have on your interview. So look, some of you are scared because you can't find a job and you have rent coming due and you're about to lose your house, your car, your dog. You sound like a bad country song. Some of you feel like you've been mistreated and you're frustrated because other idiots have jobs and you can't get the job you want because some idiot has it, or someone who's just older, or who got it because they're related to the founder or something else. Some of you have chips on your shoulder and are angry people. That's what Dr. K said I have. I have suppressed anger. So look, if you have anger, you need to, or any of these, you can't bring those to the interview. It comes through. I shared this before, but people can tell if you are coming to an interview angry or upset or frustrated. It leaks through. Now, what are you going to do about that if you're scared? Well, that's a good question. But I'm always recommending, I'm going to switch over to this for a second. I'm always talking about this book, Leadership and Self-Deception. This one. So, Leadership and Self-Deception, this book, which is on our book list, and we actually fixed the book list link so it works. So, in chat, you have the book list link now, which is on my website. If you have an issue with any of these emotions, you've got to try and clear them out. And because your natural frustration will come through in your communication, and people are really good at reading your mood and reacting to your mood. So they may not be able to articulate why, but they will leave the interview going, something was a little off about her. Something was a little off about him. Pop Xanax before you interview. I'm not sure, please enter valid username if that's a great solution, but you need to do something, meditate, right? That would be the Dr. K answer. You need to do something to get centered. You need to do something Yeah, okay. So now we're going to go Sith and let the hate flow through you. It's probably fine if you're interviewing to be a Sith. Um, but so is just killing a bunch of people, apparently. So that's the other way to interview for that. So look, if you are feeling stressed by your job search, do everything you can to get at peace and go into the interview excited and happy, because people hire excited, happy people. They do not hire frustrated, grouchy, defensive, combative, angry people. And they may not even be able to explain why, but they don't. Evelyn Hunter, if you're not a happy person, I don't know, be happy for the interview. You got to be positive or engaged, or at least don't be negative. You've got to be, if you want to interview successfully, so much of it is, do the people interviewing you like you? And they'll never say like, I've been listening to you, and the truth is you're well qualified, but I just don't fucking like you, so you're out of here. They'll never say that, but they get to go have a secret vote about you, right? And so they get to go behind your back. Yeah, Lacosi here has it right. It's crazy how much a smile, follow-up email, and being nice helps. That is exactly right. So this is my general positive advice. And even for these shitty questions that we're talking about, staying positive unless the question is offensive or illegal, in which case don't answer it and clap back nicely. And say, look, I don't think that's relevant. We need to talk about the job here, or what can I tell you about my qualifications for this job? But otherwise, keep smiling. And I've told this story, by the way. I got my job at Amazon after only having about 4 hours of sleep and a pot of coffee. So I was dog-ass tired, but I wasn't upset. I was actually completely at peace because I figured I'd already lost the job by being that sleepy. And so I didn't feel bad about it. I felt like, oh, this is going to go how this is going to go, and I don't have to worry about it. All right. So the Rex 243 really wants me to answer this question about Code Bootcamp, so much so that he used the special superpower hidden inside our voting app, and he used some bits to pump the number of votes on the question. So I'm going to hit this one up. It's long, but that's okay. What are your thoughts on coding bootcamp or self-taught coders compared to CS degree holders when applying for a first-time job in IT? What should we look out for? I'm thinking of expanding into IT for marketing and wonder how to best to learn best and / cheapest while working. So this is going to be all over the place for an answer because there's so many nuances. First, there's going to be a bunch of people that only look at degrees and that care more. What I'm getting at is some interviewers are going to care a hell of a lot more that you have an actual degree, and some aren't going to care at all. There's a bunch of successful developers at Amazon that don't have degrees. Most of them do. So it's going to depend on your manager and all kinds of stuff. That said, most good employers care, can you do the job? So if you don't have a CS degree, you need to be able to show you can do the job. Now, if you can learn that through a coding boot camp, great. And some of them are very good. I have a friend, his wife just went through coding boot camp. And so boot camps work if they work for you. They are not universal. The real point is you need some work evidence. So work on a project, build an app and be able to show the app, contribute to an open source project. Bootcamp isn't going to get you a job. I'm going to pay only marginal attention to the fact that you went to a boot camp because I'm going to be like, I have no idea. Is that accredited? Was that like you sent somebody a check? Did you make up the name of the boot camp? So the boot camp on your resume, it's nice. You're going to need to back it up with having done something. Some way you can show the work. I said, write an app, contribute to an open source project, show your GitHub stuff. Okay, so look, what should you do? You need to learn coding skills. You need to find a place to demonstrate them. Go get an internship, work at night, get some other people to work with you. You're going to have to work your way in by demonstrating the skills or just by interviewing. Put some stuff. What I mean by that is if you can pass the test on a whiteboard and you can get in to the interview through a reference or by talking to someone, you're going to have to network your way into the new job. But no one's going to be like, ooh, he went to the University of Phoenix coding boot camp. That's just like a degree from MIT. We should hire him. That isn't going to happen. So I'm sorry. I wish it was, but that's not going to happen. What is going to happen is, hey, look, show me what you've built. Let me show you what I've built. We once had a biz dev guy. He was literally negotiating to put video in Amazon Prime Video. And what he mostly did, like he was able to build his own SQL databases and write his own queries and worked at night. He was able to code just fine. And so he had work product. Now, we didn't turn him into a dev. That's not the point. But all right, cool. So I think I've answered that question. I hope the Rex, you feel you got your 200 bits worth. But the boot camp is useful to learn the skills. It's not going to convince anybody that you have them. You're going to have to demonstrate that another way. But if it helps you get the skills, great. So I've been at the same company for 5 years. I work customer service and I'm really good at my job, but it isn't what I have any interest in. I bet. 5 years of customer service, God bless you. And if you're good at it, God bless you more. But if it's not what you want to do, I expect you're pretty stressed out. I want to move to a new industry, but I don't have any experience in zero college. Okay, we're making this tough. How can I make changes in industry without experience? Woo! It's really scary to make these moves, and I'm paralyzed by doubt and fear. No shit. So, look, this is tough. Like, I don't know if you can easily do this, right? You want to move to a new industry, but you don't have any experience. So here I'm going to rely on chat. I went through college and I mostly hire folks with college educations or equivalent experience. So, if someone in chat has a real non-troll answer to this, let's help out the people who want to know. Education is super important. You're going to need, however, to be able to show you can do the job, or you're going to have to start super entry level. So night school is a good suggestion. Somebody says temp agency to get your foot in the door. Can I say the question again? Yeah, the question is, this person wants to change industries, but has no experience and no college. How are they going to do it without experience? You're going to have to network or start at a small place or get a very entry-level job. Basically, you're looking for any way in the door where you can prove yourself. Like 40 Pink Dragons, our mod said, or find a friend that can help you get in the door where you want to be. Exactly. What's the new industry? There's a lot of votes for this, so I don't know. Getting any kind of education is a good call. This is one of those cases I just bagged on boot camps and said, hey, look, boot camp isn't going to get you a job. That's true, but boot camp is better than nothing. And boot camp will get you the skills so that you can demonstrate that you can do the work. And as DT Twitch Talk says, you can learn about the industry first so that you can speak the language. He says talk smart, but that would fail the writing class that Devin and I plan for early next month. He needs to check his job market and realize what the market needs the most. When companies really need people for a position, they are willing to lower their requirements. That is absolutely true. When a company, let me tell you a story broadly. I don't speak for Amazon in this, but very broadly, when Amazon hires, I have heard from our recruiters, and they will deny this. I don't know. Who knows if they'll deny it? When we're hiring in our warehouses, we start with a really high bar. Like, we're looking for people, even in our warehouses, people to pack boxes, tape boxes, unload boxes. We're looking for really great people. As we get closer to Christmas and we need people to just put tape on the boxes, the standards go down. And I probably can't share here exactly how low they get, But if my sources are to be believed, having a pulse and showing up for work is plenty of qualification. Now, those are for temp roles over Christmas. And if you don't perform or don't show up, you'll quickly get the door, maybe instantly. But they will let people try who are willing to show up and work the shifts. Following up after an interview, what is the appropriate time to wait and how many times is appropriate to keep sending emails? I want to be proactive, but I'm afraid to seem desperate. Excellent question. Well done. Bonus points. First, preparation for this. During your interview, try to get people's names and if you can, their contact information. Second, if you can't get it from all of them during the day, you get it from the recruiter if you can. Like, oh, I spoke to Bob Smith, but I didn't get his email. I'd like to send him a thank you. Can you tell me Bob's email? You want to be emailing the people themselves. Third, tradition is you thank the very next day. So you just contact a short message that says, hey, Ethan, it was great to talk to you. I'm really interested in the role, and I wanted to thank you for your time. You can add an idea if you have one, like, oh, I was thinking about what we said, and I really think you shouldn't use shark fins in your electric shark drink. Instead, you should try a different drink called the electric octopus, made with creek and rum rather than Captain Morgan. So you can put something social in there to connect. Now, you send that the day after. If you can't get all the email addresses, you send the thank you to the recruiter, still addressed to me, and you say, dear recruiter, I've written Ethan a short thank you note, but I don't know how to reach him. Can you forward it? I sometimes get forwarded thank you notes. You can also reach out. You can also reach out on LinkedIn if you can find the person. So any one contact method. Now, that's, Duke of Thought doesn't, he's had some bad recruiter experiences. But you reach out any way you can find them and you say thanks. Then you wait a week or two, a week at least, I would say, my personal opinion. Then you try to follow up directly with the hiring manager. Dear Fred Smith, hey, I was just wondering, blah, blah, blah. You can also follow up with the recruiter. A week to every 2 weeks. Bottom line is, if more than a couple weeks go by, and Duke of Thought just went through this, if more than a couple weeks go by, they're not interested. You can follow up all you want or not. It's not going to make any fucking difference because they're just not that motivated. Maybe they'll get around to you, and what it means is they got desperate or they're very slow. But every 1 to 2 weeks. So, all right. All right, next question. Hello, I've had multiple interviews where I've had great feedback, but have yet to get a technical position. Are they just giving me a nice response to be nice? So I'm assuming you're interviewing for technical positions. Recruiters are never going to say something mean to you. Why bother? Most people aren't going to say mean things to you. It's just not worth it. It's so much easier because then you may react or you may make people, you may lash out. Like, it's so much easier to just say, well, we had a lot of really qualified candidates. We really enjoyed talking to you, but we got to, whatever. Scream Gaming 95. That's awesome. $12K a year and you're saving most of it. You should definitely do that. If anyone can live off less than what they're making and save it, this is not a financial show, but I highly recommend it. And it is possible to live on relatively little, depending on what trade-offs you'll make. All right. And someday, Devin and I will do a financial show, I'm sure. We're not doing it yet, and we haven't talked about it. And I don't even know if he's still here. But I'm sure one day we'll do the, how to manage your money in our uneducated opinions show. So you've had multiple interviews. Yes, people are just being nice to you. Probably. they're giving you good feedback, you can actually ask them and say, if there's anything I could have done better, or what's some feedback I could use to improve. There are ways to get behind this, to get deeper into what's going on. So there are a number of ways to get further into this. But you need to get real feedback. And one way to get feedback is to talk to the actual people, not the recruiter. So again, if you listen to the previous question about following up, if you have their contact, you can call them even. If you can track down a phone number and say, hey, Bob, it didn't work out at Amazon. I'm really sorry about that, or whatever. I really wanted to work there, but I'm not here to complain about that. I just want to know, what could I learn? What could you tell me that would help me be more successful in the future? I promise I won't bother you again, because people are afraid you're going to be mad. And then no matter what they tell you, another reason, like, I rarely give people honest feedback, I don't lie to them, I just don't give them any feedback at all, is because they then argue with you. If you say, well, in our interview, we found that you didn't know enough about distributed systems. And they're like, distributed systems? I know, blah, 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 blah. You're so wrong, blah. And it's like, a rule of feedback is, if you ask for feedback, the right answer is simply, thank you. That's it. If they say, you had boogers all over your face and we don't do booger people, you say, oh, wow, thank you. If they say, if all you've ever done in your life, you are the world's foremost expert at whatever, writing legal documents to defend patents, and they say, well, we don't feel you had enough patent experience, you say, really? Well, that's so interesting. Tell me more. Thank you. Never, what the hell do you mean? Or anything like that. All right. Couple more questions that are fun, and then we're done. Should you disclose any chronic or long-term illnesses? No, not unless you feel you need to find out something about the benefits. As a manager, that just puts me in a really awkward position. And honestly, the first thing that goes in my mind is, why are you telling me this? Devin Nash doesn't hire booger people. I would not disclose long-term illnesses unless you have some reason to, unless you need a work accommodation. And I wouldn't do that until after the offer is made. I am not a lawyer and I don't have the expertise, but in the US, you can ask for what's called reasonable accommodation for a condition or medically protected need. I don't know any of the details. Look it up, get qualified advice from someone who can give that to you. But I wouldn't disclose that unless you had a reason. Hey, everybody, this has been super fun. I will be back on Monday the 3rd at 6 p.m. Pacific talking about managing up. I appreciate all of you who've been here. I appreciate Devin Nash coming and hanging out, and the entire Nash Nation. Feel free to put claps in chat or hearts. APUG, love to see you. It's been great having all the people chat and answer questions. This topic, obviously super popular. You guys did so much voting for it, made it easy to answer things for you. I really am thrilled with the way this community's developed. And so thank you all for being here. Hi, I'm Ethan Evans. I hope you've gotten a lot out of this show. To follow us on YouTube, please click the bell icon in the bottom left and subscribe. Also, you can find us live on Twitch, where we answer questions interactively. Further, we have a Discord community, where not only I, but other members of the community team up to answer your questions interactively. Hope you've enjoyed. Thank you.